Hello and welcome to the Léa Slip Dress tutorial. This is the third design in my line of sewing patterns, and I'm an American living in Paris and working in the fashion industry. So my desire is to take the Parisian style and bring it to you. Okay, so let's get into it. Living in Paris, you have to have your go-to soiree dress. This is the dress you wear when you get your dinner party invite or for a night on the town. So I really wanted to base my next design on this concept. So here's the dress. And I feel like it can be taken from day to night and be super versatile. You can wear it as a bridesmaid's dress or wedding guest dress. I feel like you could also wear it maybe for prom or a gala. And then at the same time, if you wanted to wear it casually, you could pair it with a jean jacket, maybe some sneakers or oversized blazer and sandals. So I really wanted to make something that was quite versatile. And y'all, the pattern comes in 3 lengths to choose from. So we have our maxi floor length, we have our midi, and we have our mini length. And you can style the straps as you like. So here we have them crisscrossed. And here we have them coming straight down, which I felt like was quite lovely. And then here we have the classic halter. And then here we took the straps and made it a little choker with the bow in the back. I feel like the choker could also be cute with the bow in the front as well. As you can see, the dress is super customizable. You can make it in so many different ways. So here I changed the neckline in strap color. I used pink with black. I think it could also be nice with a pattern fabric like a stripe or a floral print. And for the shoot, so my friends and I started at the Pont Alexandre III Bridge. It is a must-see when you visit Paris. And here's me putting the finishing touches. I'm such a perfectionist. And then we went to the Opera Garnier. It is so beautiful. Another must-see if you come to Paris. Okay, guys, I hope you have as much fun sewing it as I did creating it. So let's start sewing. On y va. Okay, so once you've downloaded the pattern, the next step is printing. So this pattern includes sizes 0 through 20, which means there's a lot of lines and markings on the file, and that could be a little overwhelming at first. So I recommend printing only the size you need. And I've layered the pattern so that way you can select just your size before printing. It's super convenient, and I'll walk you through how to do it. So the first step is going to be to open the pattern in Adobe Acrobat Reader. It's a free program that you can download from the Adobe website. I'll place a link in the description box below. And if you purchase a lot of PDF sewing patterns, it's definitely worth having this program installed. So as you can see here, the pattern includes sizes 0 through 20, and they are all color-coded. So to print only your size, what you're going to do is you're going to go to the right panel. And once you go here to the right panel, you're going to select the layers icon. So as you can see here, there is a list of all the available sizes. So for this example, let's say you're making a size 10. So what you will do is you'll simply deselect every size that's not a size 10, okay? So you will start with 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20. So now, as you can see, the only line that remains is the size 10. Et voila! Now you have a clean pattern ready to print in just your size. I wanted to also point out a very important step, and that is measuring the test square. So when you print your pattern, start by printing just the first page and check the test square. So you could grab a ruler or tape measure to make sure that it measures exactly as indicated. Even if it's slightly off, the proportions of the entire pattern will be wrong. So for example, it's actually a cautionary tale, but I printed out this pattern and the square measured 1 inch and 7/8 by 1 inch and 7/8. And I thought it's just a tiny difference. It should be fine. But when I started taping the pattern together, I noticed it came out shorter and smaller than intended. So trust me, always double check the test square measures correctly before moving forward. And the test square should measure exactly 2 inches by 2 inches. And for my non-American girlies, my international friends, it should be 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters. En français, 5 centimètres sur 5 centimètres exactement. I wish I knew Dutch. I wish I knew German, Spanish, all the languages to say this in because it is super important. And if you're having any issues, don't hesitate to message me on Etsy. I'm always here for you. I will say I did change my printer settings to A4 and that helped out a lot. Okay, and moving right along, this part is all about getting things ready before we actually sew the dress. So think of part one as the preparation, we're prepping everything, and then part two will be the actual sewing. So here's the assembly guide for printing at home. Once you print out all your pages and tape them together, your pattern will look like this. Now, let me point out a couple things so you don't get confused. First of all, there is no A1 or A2. So it starts at A3, okay? And it's going to be the same thing with the B row. So you won't see a B1, it starts at B2. So don't worry, you're not missing anything. It's just set up that way to save paper, okay? And also for the strap piece. So you're going to only see H5. There aren't H1 through H4, just H5, okay? So in some of my other videos, I go step by step on how to print, cut, and tape your pattern together. And if you want the full walkthrough, you can check those out. But for today, I'm just gonna give you the quick version. It's super simple. What you're going to do is you're going to match up the triangles, okay? So that they form a diamond. And then you'll line up all the rows and the columns by number and by letter, and then you'll cut out your pieces. And I wanted to show you what it will look like once you cut out all of your pieces. And I've actually already cut it out of the fabric, but I will show you what the pieces will look like. So this is the back piece. It's going to be cut 2 on the bias, and you can choose from, remember, midi length, or the maxi floor length. So this is the back piece here. And here is the front piece, and it will be cut 1 on the fabric fold. And here is the French dart. And like the back, there is a mini length cut line, a midi, and a maxi floor length cut line. So this is our front pattern piece. And then next up, we have our strap pattern piece. So this one is going to be cut 2, and it will be cut on the bias. And last but not least, this tiny little pattern piece. So it's for the loops that your straps will slide through. And you'll only need one of these, and yep, it's cut on the bias. So I was having a little trouble trying to get my camera to focus, but this is what it will look like up close. Okay, so now we are ready to cut the pattern out of the fabric. And before we do so, I just wanted to give you a quick visual overview of how each pattern piece will look once it's cut out the fabric, okay? So we have the front piece, and it's gonna look like this because we will cut it on the fold, okay? So it'll be one piece. And then for the back, it'll be 2 pieces. But what we will do is we will cut one of the pieces out, and then we will take the pattern and we will flip it down. So it's going to be facing down, and then we're going to cut out our second piece. So we want to make sure that the 2 back pieces mirror each other. We don't want them going in the same direction. And then for the straps are going to be cut 2 as well. So we'll have 1 strap for each side, and then our back loop is going to be cut 1. Now I want to take you to the fabric store where I found the perfect fabric for this tutorial. It was truly love at first sight. If you're ever in Paris, you must visit one of my favorite fabric shops called Tissu Rain. Here is what it looks like from the outside. It's super charming. The store features multiple floors filled with a variety of fabric and notions, and they even have little dolls on display showcasing outfits made from the fabrics available for sale. If you're ever in the area, here's some info. I highly recommend stopping by. It's an absolute must-see for any fabric lover. And even if you're not in Paris, you could still order from their website, so I'll place a link in the description box below. So now we are ready to cut out the fabric. So apparently my camera went off mid-cut. I think it's because the camera didn't have enough memory and I didn't even notice, y'all. So I'm super sorry about that. Please forgive me. But not to worry, I will explain step by step how to cut the pattern out of the fabric. The important thing to know is that this dress is cut on the bias. And I found this image from the Designer Stitch blog, and I think it illustrates and explains the bias cut wonderfully. So instead of cutting the pattern on the straight line of the weave, the bias cut places the pattern at a 45-degree angle. And so some of the benefits of cutting on the bias is that the dress drapes more beautifully. It hugs the body's curves, it's more comfortable. As a whole, it's more flattering. And time for a little fashion history lesson. So Madeleine Vionnet, a French designer, is credited with creating the revolutionary bias cut dress in the 1920s, forever changing the shape of women's fashion, which previously was dominated by corsets. Okay, but there is one disadvantage of the bias cut. As you can imagine, it uses a lot more fabric. So I'm going to show you how to cut the fabric in a way that it won't use too much fabric. And with your pattern, you should have received a fabric layout guide. I would suggest that you print that out as well, so that way you could follow along, okay? So the first step after you lay your fabric out is going to be to measure the fabric length, okay? And what we are going to do, we're going to measure the fabric length, and at the midpoint, we are going to add a pin. So for my length here, it measured 83 inches. So I will add a pin at that halfway mark of 41.5 inches. Okay, and now we will do the same to the other side, okay? So again, what we're doing is measuring the length. And then at that halfway, that midpoint, we're going to add a pin and put it in place. And actually both sides should measure the same. And the reason why we are doing this, think of this like the pins creating an imaginary line. And if you wanted to, you could fold the fabric and make an indentation if you like. But this line is going to be very important as we cut out our pattern pieces. So next, what you'll do is you'll take this corner and we will fold it to match this halfway line. So the selvage should be lined up with that imaginary halfway midline, just like so. And then just line it up perfectly. Okay, so now we have the folds for our front pattern piece. And this is going to be the same way to cut for each length. So here I'm making the mini, but if you make the mini, the midi, or the maxi, you will cut it the exact same way, okay? So now what we'll do, we'll get our front pattern piece. okay? And we will just line up that edge of the pattern with that fold. And we will pin it in place. So this is where my camera stopped recording, but I will explain what to do next. I do advise that you watch the entire cutting section of this tutorial before starting to cut. So the next step is going to be to cut the back piece. So we will actually cut it out twice. We'll cut it out one time with the pattern facing up like normal, and then the other time with the pattern facing down. Okay, so get your back pattern piece and you will place it like so. Just make sure that the grain line is parallel to that selvage edge there. So this creates that 45-degree bias angle. So pin and cut the pattern piece out of the fabric. Mark all your notches onto your fabric with chalk or whatever you use for marking. And so imagine that this piece is already cut out. And next, okay, very important. So take that back paper pattern piece and face it down, okay? So you'll do this when you cut out the next piece out of your fabric. And you may say, how am I supposed to see the grain line? That's a very good observation. What you will have to do is actually trace the grain line onto the back of that pattern piece. So why do we do this? So we do this because we need a mirror image of the two back dress pieces. So that's what we did here. And what you'll do, you'll place the piece like so. Now make sure your grain line is going to be parallel to that selvage edge there, okay? So the first one was parallel to this selvage edge, and now this one is going to be parallel to this edge, okay? So now what you'll do is you'll pin it in place. Now we can cut out our bias binding pieces. So this piece you will cut twice. But if you want to buy double fold bias tape already made, then you can ignore this step. So you'll take your pattern piece and you'll place it in between, making sure that that little grain line there is parallel to that edge there, the same edge that we used for our second back piece. So what you'll do is you'll pin it and then you'll cut it out completely. And finally, take that same piece again and cut it out the exact same way. And also, don't forget to cut out that very small back loop piece. You can cut it out of any of the scraps that you have left over. Okay, see, super easy. So now we're ready to sew.